Hello and welcome to Cut Through the Noise, the podcast that helps business leaders increase sales through elevated communications and marketing. I'm your host, Aisling O'Rourke, the communications coach. And in this episode, we're wrapping up season 8 of the podcast, which has been all about internal communications. Over the past 5 episodes, I've spoken with some brilliant guests and asked some tough questions. And, as I've been known to do, shared some of my own thoughts along the way. Today, though, I want to take time to pause and reflect on the season and pick out those real highlights from this season. It's time that we really focus on internal communications. It's not, as I've been saying in recent episodes, a nice to have. No, it's a business critical function that deserves proper attention. So let's dive in. In episode 1, I opened up the series by asking you to consider internal communications as a core business competency. Too often, and I see this time and time again with my clients, that it's actually the last thing a business considers when scaling up, merging teams, or introducing change. But if your internal communications are confused and inconsistent, it doesn't matter how slick the branding is or how cool your social media is, because cracks will show internally and externally. Transparent communication builds trust. I talk about trust an awful lot on Cut Through the Noise and the importance of building trust with your audience, but the same can be said with your team. You need to build trust. Without trust, growth becomes a struggle and a business becomes stagnant. So if you're serious about scaling your business or improving your team's importance, start by looking inwards, not just at the systems you use, but the tone, the timing, and the clarity of your messaging. Communicate early and often. Don't wait until you've got the perfectly formed plan before saying anything. People can handle uncertainty. Seriously, your team can handle uncertainty. They can handle uncertainty better than they will handle silence. A simple, here's what we know and here's what we don't, can do wonders. Providing clear and concise information brings your team along with you on the journey. Silence will leave a vacuum to be filled by assumptions and misunderstandings. In episode 2, I was joined by Shay Agbede, and Shay brought a fresh and thought-provoking perspective to the topic, I felt. Shay talked to us about inclusivity and the importance of inclusivity in the workplace, but challenged us instead of talking about it on the surface to go deeper and ask ourselves powerful questions like, how are you communicating with yourself? Because if the internal dialogue is cluttered or misaligned, it's likely to show up in how you lead and communicate with your team. So if your internal talk is negative and overwhelming, then it stands to reason that your external talk will be as well. Shay reminded us that inclusion isn't just a policy or a project, it's a daily communication strategy, and it starts with self-awareness.
Because we're talking about the inclusion, and I usually say that there are several barriers that could limit you, gender barriers, ethnic barriers, that's fine, but the most effective barriers that could limit you are the barriers you set against yourself. Now, once you believe that you are more than enough to achieve whatever it is, regardless of whatever barriers that are there, you are one step ahead of the game already.
In episode 3, I was delighted to be joined by Andrea O'Grady of The Wellness Edge. Andrea made the case for integrating wellness into your communication strategy, not as an afterthought, but actually as a central pillar of your organization's internal culture. She told us about something I've thought about quite a bit since our conversation. And again, that you need to start with the why. Why are we having this meeting? Why is this policy being introduced? Why should this matter to our team? When you get clear on the why, your team is far more likely to stay engaged, motivated, and well. It's a reminder that clarity isn't just about good communication, it's about good leadership.
The question I would ask then is why? Why are you under pressure? Is it because of the workload? Is it because of the structure in work? Is it because you're lacking team members? What's going on? Or is time not being managed properly? Are there meetings about meetings about meetings? You know, there's a lot of policies and structures and systems in place in the workplace that don't match up with the company values, in fact, to look after their people and to enhance the human experience at work. And that is box ticking in itself. So are they really walking the walk? It takes courage to actually really look at your business and say, is it performing? Is it the bottom line being affected by team morale, by our culture? And to shine a light on the areas that need some work.
Finally, I rounded out our guest interviews this season with a fantastic conversation with Alec Drew, the business expert. In my chat with Alec, we focused on the challenges of communicating across different generations in the workplace, from baby boomers to Generation Z. Each group has its own preferences, style, expectations, and language. Alec believes that distractions, particularly mobile phones, are also a major barrier to effective meetings and internal communication. And while I disagree with Alec in that I don't think we need to start leaving our mobile phones at the door, because quite frankly, we're adults and we should behave as such. And just because the mobile phone might ping beside us or, it might vibrate doesn't mean we need to take our focus away from the intention. I think that, as somebody who manages my disability through using an app on my mobile phone, I think we do need to be cognizant of being inclusive, and that there are times when mobile phones are needed because there may be a family emergency about to happen at home, or you may be waiting on an important business call that actually is more important than the meeting I'm currently sitting in. However, Alec made this really interesting and valid point about the distraction notifications cause on our phones and the importance of, during the working day and particularly during focused periods of time, of muting those notifications so that we don't allow ourselves to become distracted.
If I'm having a meeting, all mobile devices are left outside. Unless you're a heart surgeon waiting to perform an operation to save somebody's life, there's nothing going to come in on that phone that you need to have in your hand that cannot wait an hour. The productivity level of that meeting will rise exponentially, as it used to back in the day. It's simple things just like that. If you're creating an important document and it needs your full-time attention, you should be away from the noise, the phones, any notifications. They should be all turned off, because what people fail to understand is you could be 20 minutes into writing something. There's a notification of some sort that distracts you, but it actually takes 22 minutes for you to get your mindset back into what you were doing. Think of that 2 or 3 times a day, and the loss of productivity that that it delivers. So that's just a starting point. Getting into what you're talking about in terms of the use of technology within an organization, I think it's very important that there's a team approach to what technology that we're going to bring in involving all the generations. It's very easy for some tech savvy person to say, let's go for the latest and greatest and we'll throw it at them. The young people will probably pick it up. And as you get older and older, the less they'll pick it up. And they don't want to be embarrassed by saying, I don't understand how this works. So they'll make a complete hames of it. And so the productivity that the company was hoping that would have been brought about by the use of this technology is now lost.
So, what have we learned this season? Well, number one, that internal communication needs to be intentional. Don't leave it to chance. Don't assume that what you've said is clear, that your team understands what it is that you want, or even worse still, assume that your team are good communicators because, well, sure, they're bound to be. No, it takes actual attention and work. Number 2, inclusion and wellness are not side projects. They are communication strategy that affect how your people perform and feel. They affect every part of our businesses, so we need to be putting them at the forefront. And clarity is a kindness when you think about it. Whether you're leading a team meeting or navigating a change, start with why and communicate with empathy and purpose. Well, that brings us to the end of season 8 of Cut Through the Noise. Thank you for listening always and for staying loyal to the podcast, but also to each of my guests for their insights and thoughts along the way. Before I go, you may have noticed if you are following Cut Through the Noise with Aisling O'Rourke on YouTube or on our social media platforms that, well, the studio surrounds have changed a little bit. And that's because here at the Communications Coach HQ, we're working on a brand new studio space, and I'm very excited to be bringing that to you in the not too distant future. So the visuals on the this particular season of the podcast have changed a little bit from episode to episode, but we're working on it and it will be back to its slick brand-centric look in no time. I hope you have enjoyed this season of Cut Through the Noise. And if you've benefited from it or loved a particular episode, please do feel free to review an episode, send us in a comment, or share it with a friend, colleague, or even a member of your leadership team. You can find more resources and coaching options at thecommunicationscoach.ie. If you think I can help with something, get in contact with me. I'd love to hear from you. hello@thecommunicationscoach.ie is the email. But don't worry, all the links will be in the show notes below. We'll be back with a new season of Cut Through the Noise very soon. But remember that while content may well be king, clarity is key if you want to stand out from the crowd and cut through the noise.